Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Hot. It's hot.
Welcome back, everybody. Mike's wife is about to whoop the living shit out of him in the background. Especially, I was trying to record just in time to catch it, but we might have missed it.
Murder on
You
video.
better start recording video, Joe.
We can always hope. It'll be more fun in the courtroom just to hear you screaming like a little girl while Angela whoops you. It'd be awesome. Love it. So, Mike, we are back here again with my dear friend and neighbor, Steve. Steve, welcome
No,
back.
Steve.
For those of you kind enough to listen to us idiots, you remember Steve was here a handful of weeks ago where we talked about wonderful concerts that we've been to, and hopefully more that we will go to in the near future. I still need to go get us tickets to Primus, but we got time. We still got time. So we brought Steve back because on top of being a very well-rounded man in, let's say, the music industry, his knowledge is deep and wonderful and so great to hear the stories of. He is also a very well-educated man in history. And I want to just we're going to talk about some stuff tonight that just references things that went on around we're going to say the World War II era and all that. And this is, again, why we brought Steve in, just because I want to use some of it just for comparison's sake to the reliving of history, things that are going on now, and kind of how we feel about them, and just kind of spitball those different types of conversations. So real quick, Steve, if you could just give everybody out there the 30-second background as to why I would have brought you in for your historical knowledge on for specific purposes, we'll say kind of the Holocaust and leading up to that.
Okay.
So
I own the largest privately owned collection of artifacts from the Holocaust in the United States. I've done 27 museum exhibits in the U.S. I've done 3 in Europe, including Wadowice, Skopje, Macedonia, and in 2015, I did an exhibit at the Vatican in Rome. I used to co-teach a class at Xavier University in Cincinnati on the Holocaust, and I've spoken at many universities, schools, historical societies, you name it. And I started studying the Holocaust when I was 8 years old. I'm now 61, so I've got
a couple years
of studying it. So just a little, 1 or 2.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a couple.
Well, thank you. And some of the reason that I also kind of brought up the topic for tonight is back earlier this year, I was at one of Steve's lectures where I think it was what anniversary was it?
It was the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz in January. Yeah.
In January. There's not many left that are around from it.
Yeah.
So Stephen, I listened to that and I'd always found everything, especially as a kid growing up, related to World War II is very interesting. And I think that's just kind of how teenage boys are when you kind of get into that part of history. It just kind of grabs you in. It's an amazing story on top of it being true and all that. And there were things that you told that I had never heard. Even being someone who was very fascinated with it and having a grandfather that was, deep into World War II and at some of those liberation camps as a medic. And I've seen, some of these very crazy pictures and all that. To hear more information than I even thought I knew was just awesome and very eye opening in a lot of ways.
Thank you.
Because the way that you talk about it and kind of give the history of it, of everything even leading up to it, it's just a different perspective than everyone's used to hearing. Everyone's used to everything in small amounts of time. And nowadays, I think that perception has to get shorter thanks to TikTok and all that. So now if you can't tell me World War II history in 30 seconds, kids lose the
well, and I have no dog in the fight. Every time,
which is even better.
I will do a presentation, I will be asked, well, are you Jewish? No connection to it whatsoever. But as I said earlier, I've studied it since I was a kid. I was around, 8 years old when I first started studying. I would go to antique shows with my dad and collect stuff and read about it. And I've read it my whole life. And I read firsthand accounts. I don't bother with any information on the internet about it. I'll read stuff that was published right after the war, the trials. They had
Mm.
trials in the 60s,
Yeah.
uh, from 1947 through the 60s.
I think one of the things you said that kind of really, pulled at my heartstrings is you pretty much said to one person once that you do it because you care about humanity, and that's why you like to teach it and people to learn and know all about that. You're a human. Suffering is suffering.
Yeah, it
Why
is.
everyone technically does have a dog in the fight because we're human beings, right? And
Yeah,
there's ways around that. You
it's the short version of what Joe said. I was at Hebrew Union College once in Cincinnati and had a man who happened to be Jewish. He asked why any of this was any of my business, and I said, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, I just don't understand why you care that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust." And I responded and said, "Sir, you're right." I said, I don't give a damn that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. I care that 6 million people died in the Holocaust. I
Yes.
said, and if you've missed that point, you've missed the whole presentation. It's not that I'm saying, oh, this group or that, and there were more than that. There
Yep.
were political prisoners, homosexuals, Slavic people,
Across the
mentally
board. Yeah.
across the board, right? So I feel like I'm the Lorax to speak for the trees, where I try to tell everybody's story, and I want it to be remembered, and I don't want it to happen again more than it.
Now, Steve, I relate to for me, it's become a morbid curiosity. I'll just call it that, because my wife gets freaked out because I watch all this true crime stuff and the serial killers. I've studied into them, and of course the Holocaust and Third Reich, and all those nasty things that happened throughout history. The thing that's always grabbed me is what drives the human mind to make it okay to do such things. That's what's always grabbed me and blown my mind, because I know that I'm not a person that would be capable of doing such things. And what would drive a society or a person or a people to go that and do those things to anybody, let alone it be prostitutes or Jewish people or black people. It just blows my mind. And I find it absolutely fascinating.
Well, and I think to answer your question, it's something that, like on this topic that Joe wanted to talk about tonight, the short answer that the Germans had a term for these people that they deemed lesser than, and it was Untermensch, which means subhuman. And ironically enough, so, one of the methods of killing, not the only method, but one of the primary methods of killing in Auschwitz was the use of Zyklon B gas. And Zyklon was originally a pesticide developed in the 90s by, ironically enough, a Jewish chemist. It was a great product in that you could dispense it. It would clear out any kind of pests, whether they be lice, rats, roaches, whatever, in a building, and you could fumigate it out, blow the gas out, and there was no residual. And you could, you'd lay a sandwich right on the table. It was
Crazy.
it was completely dispersed.
Wow.
And ironically, the one of the reasons the Nazis chose to use this product was, number one, its efficiency, as I just said, but they, through their propaganda, had compared Jews to vermin. And I have propaganda in my collection where they have a Star of David around a rat. They compare them to typhus, an infection on society, and so they thought, okay, well, what do you kill rats with? What do you kill pests with? Well, pesticide. So it was, in their minds, it was a logical conclusion. Um, I think the reason people can do that is if you can psychologically make someone lesser than you, then fortunately in the human mind, to some people, it's no different than killing a snake in your yard or stepping on a bug that's crawling in your kitchen. They don't see it as any different. And it's a tragedy today, I think.
No, no, continue.
It's a tragedy today that I will say this right up front, on both sides of the aisle, they make people that they disagree with enemies. They're idiots, they're the devil, they're criminals, they're whatever derogatory term you want to use. Well, they're Nazis, whatever,
Anything,
like
yeah.
anything. And it's unfortunate. We need to get back to a time, in my opinion, where people can have civilized disagreement and debate and respect someone
Their on their
that,
opinion.
yeah, their own opinion. That, I mean, they may agree, but that's how we learn as people, by having open discussion with people you may not agree with. I don't get any enjoyment out of being in a room with someone, with people that everyone in the room agrees with me. I get
Bored.
Mm,
it's an echo chamber. I mean, why do I want to be in an
yeah.
echo chamber?
Yep.
I would rather be in a room with people with 5 or 6 different opinions. You know, you learn points, you can teach points. It's just way more fascinating, an opportunity to learn and to grow as people.
Okay, so I'm gonna I'm gonna cut you off there
Okay,
because you
please do.
literally you perfectly segued into where I wanted to start.
Yeah,
I love it. Oh, it's a hibiki, baby. um, part of it is to just real quick add on to the piece you were just talking about. It's just like in life, when you do something and you fail at it and then continue on, you remember and learn from the failures way more than when you succeed the first time every single time
Oh,
because it
yeah.
sticks with you more.
Yeah.
And just like having that debate by seeing other sides of the opinion, whether you agree with it or not, it will stick back there, at least make you think about it a little bit and
Right.
look on your own side. So one of the things that you were just talking about before we went into the psychosis of this, which God, I'd love to find a psychiatrist because that would be what you're talking about, Mike, would be very interesting to get into that one. Is you had talked about the propaganda that they used back in, I hate to call it Nazi Germany. I'd rather call it pre-Nazi Germany because it was when they were going through their rough times, but the propaganda was out there to where you talk about it, they would put posters up and they would put stuff out there where they would say how this part of society was not, they were not us. They were below us. They were subhuman. Back then, it was flyers, right? Posters, flyers, almost like a zine where they would print it and hand it, distribute that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, so a lot of people don't know this. Pre Hitler's days in Vienna, which was just prior to World War One, he was not particularly anti-Semitic at all.
No.
The doctor that treated his mother Clara died of breast cancer. The doctor did everything he could do to save Hitler's mother, and he was Jewish. And Hitler wrote the doctor this glowing letter of praise of how great this man was, that he made every effort to save his mom, and he'd always be in his debt, this whole thing. Something a lot of people don't know, Hitler had a crush on a Jewish girl named Stephanie. I don't recall her last name off the top of my head, but anyway, he thought she was so beautiful and the most perfect creature on earth. He would never approach her. He would make
Been
comments to
there.
his friends that she was just above him and beyond him, and she would never accept him because she was just the perfect woman in his eyes, and all this glowing praise. He won the Iron Cross first class in World War One. The sergeant that gave it to him was Jewish and a very dear friend of Hitler's in World War One. So,
Crazy.
there's many instances of Jewish friends and, co-workers, if you want to call a fellow soldier a co-worker. But the propaganda on the streets of Vienna and around Germany dated back to way back, like for time immemorial, but it was very prevalent at the end of the 19th century in Austria, where Hitler was from, and in Germany, where he ended up moving to and become leader of. So yeah, it dates way back. And it was the same thing, as I said earlier, that you see today, making someone lesser than, criticizing their individual traits. It's never changed. It's the same thing today as it was 100 years ago.
So if we were to, I guess what I was guiding at toward that one, or where I wanted to get is today's propaganda for that, is that what, God, it sounds so sick to say, but is that almost what social media is turning into?
It's so
Right?
it's exactly. So, it used to be poster boards and billboards and things back 100 years ago. Now it's social media.
Yeah.
That your people today tend to gravitate toward their own personal interest. they're not open to outside discussion or ideology. They don't want to hear about it. And well, I'll just use an example that has nothing to do with politics. I've heard so many people criticize, the Howard Stern show. They'll just go on and he's crude and he does this and he does the other. He's horrible. I
Agreed.
say, well, do you have Sirius XM? No. Well, when did you ever hear the Howard Stern show? Well, I would never listen to that. Well, then how do you
What's
know
your base?
what's your base? You've never heard the show, so I mean, if you don't like it, that's your taste. Great, whatever.
Yeah.
But how can you criticize it if you've never heard a single episode of the show? I don't understand that mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's become a problem with that mentality and social media is you put something online and it's just enough to catch your eye.
Right.
And so then it draws you in a little bit. And then you see, well, there's a lot of these clicks that like it. Now I got to go scroll through the comments and, everyone's a keyboard warrior nowadays. So the
Right.
comments can be anywhere from disgusted by it to, to praising it. And depending on which one just happens to catch your eye, it's a rabbit hole that people can fall down very quickly. And there's so much of it out there that it's just, you can't avoid it. If you were to compare it, I'm not you, in
Yeah.
general, but I'm saying comparing this to how it was back when, and even it goes to, this is one that'll blow your mind, Mike. And I'm going to go full circle back to the US because you talked about this again in the last presentation that I saw you do. And this one, Steve, this blew my mind in ways I would have never expected. It really did. It was beyond eye opening. So the laws that they first came up with about the anti-Jews
Oh,
were the Jim Crow laws.
Yeah.
So
Line for line.
yeah. So so if you think about our own history going back a couple hundred years, we had Jim Crow laws where if you were on the side of that, you could plaster this kind of stuff up and you could see, blacks only, or not even blacks, like colored water fountain and bathroom and, and
Right.
whites only. And people would see that and either you would see it so much that you'd be desensitized to it and you'd be fine with it and you would move on. Well, now we've just kind of done that and put it to where it's constantly in your face. Maybe I guess as much as it was back then when I really think about it, because you would go out and we lived in a smaller bubble of land back then. You traveled into one little town and that's all you saw because that's what the perception was. Now that's the perception we see, unfortunately, online in so many different ways. And the weird thing is it's like you said, it's very two-sided. The perception is either A or B,
Yeah,
and
it's polarizing.
and it's championed on both sides. And it doesn't matter how vile it might be on one or the other. People aren't bothered by feeling, and it's just like let's take Epstein for a second and forget all the powerful people that are tied to him. Just the fact that the man was known to do very disgusting things with underage women. There are people that'll get online and still support and praise the man, and
Yeah.
the fact that you can even have that mindset is scary. And I'm watching that. So I guess part of me is seeing how prevalent this open conversation in a very negative way is growing. And it's unfortunately not only growing with the regular people walking around, but celebrities, powerful people, it's all factions up to
Yeah, you can't go to a rock concert anymore and hear music. You have
there's
to
a there's
you
a
have to go
view.
hear you have to go hear a speech.
Well, yes. Even like Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, has to have his viewpoint out there on everything that's out there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy that, the Rockefellers had all that, but did they keep it amongst their friends? I don't know. But it's I guess I see as a scary parallel to what was happening at that, time frame in Germany and even in Russia. A lot of people don't want to talk about that. And even Italy. And
the
Italy, if
communism was
you
bad.
go with Stalin and Mussolini, they were just other versions of the same thing. I don't think Mussolini didn't have the brains to do it as as well as Stalin and Hitler did, but they knew how to grab that hate and the propaganda and push it out there to where people weren't shocked when they heard it. And that has been something I've started to notice that scares me a little bit when I look at the future and try to, teach my children to please don't ever think and act this way. It's just it's not okay to openly have that hate in any
For one
manner.
side or the other. Yeah, I've
Yeah, you know,
noticed it in our teenagers that they will choose one side or the other, and they automatically want to get addicted to demonizing one ideology over the other. It's like, guys, there's a whole other gray area of this world you need to look at. I mean, I
yeah.
know you want to have your side, and everybody wants to pick their tribe, but that's not what life's all about. That's not what society's all about. I
I'll
think
I'll
that's.
I'll pick music, because last time I was on, we were discussing music.
Mhm.
So I collect guitars. I love guitar. I love Jimmy Page and my guitar heroes, right? But I don't want to hear just a band of just guitar. I want to hear the drums. I want to hear a bass. I want to hear the keyboard. I want to hear a singer, the horn section for Chicago. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to hear all of that. I
Yeah.
get I get much more enjoyment out of the music if there's more going on than just a guitar. And I look at life that way with everyone. We were discussing earlier, I won't mention any names, a friend of Joe's and ours. We politically argue all the time, but I he's a dear friend and we respect each other in that we respectfully debate and discuss. We don't argue. We go point and listen to the other point, and we will concede. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that.
That's huge right there, honestly.
It is.
That is the biggest
It's
thing right there.
rare. It's very rare in today's world, and I miss it. Growing up, people have said to me, "Well, are you a liberal or a conservative?" I've heard both come out of your mouth, and I said, I grew up in a time, I was born in 1965. So my biggest frustration as a child was having my Saturday morning cartoons interrupted from news flashes about the Vietnam War. Like, put the Roadrunner back on. Come on. But that's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
And I heard every side of it. I had older cousins that were in the war. So I got their perspective as soldiers. I saw the protesters, and I was curious how each side looked at it. And I think that's a lot of the root of my thinking of growing up in an era in the early 70s where everything was debated and discussed. In at school and colleges on TV. I would watch All in the Family with Carol O'Connor
Couldn't do that now.
do it now,
No.
and growing up listening to Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor with the race thing, and it was comedy. It was lighthearted and fun. And now it's, God, I'm offended. Okay, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Thinking about as you were talking, I also remember growing up, I guess a decade after you, but like the news was out there, and when the news was on, it was just the news, and then they moved on to it. Whereas now, depending on what news you put on, it's a very specific perspective, and only, it's a very, Fox is straight on about this. MSNBC is straight on about this. CNN is this. There's not
It's commentary.
yeah, which
Yeah.
is very sad. We've lost that, um, I don't want to say conversation, the dialogue that used to exist amongst people and having that conversation and learning from each other. And so I see that. And like I said, I think social media has become that new, definitely the new propaganda for all of that. And it just goes into every different realm that's out there. Whether you want to call it for the hatred of any specific thing or whether it's Coke versus Pepsi. I mean, hell, could you imagine, even if you just want to look into a way of eating into that a little bit, the old school Budweiser tastes great, less filling?
Yeah.
Imagine if you just put those commercials up and threw that onto social media and let it blow up.
Right.
People would go crazy on one side or the other. And it was just a humorous thing back then, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
how it went. So I see that and I see that comparison growing. And it scares me only because, or not scares me, but worries me only because it is becoming more and more accepting when people just put stuff out there and, one side, they all just seem to focus on their side and nobody is truly, like you said, everyone's bothered by something, but nobody actually cares enough to stop it from going too far. It's
Well,
it's very interesting
I
how far speech is.
I unfortunately I see it as a method of control. by the powers that be, the people who want to run the world.
Continue. That's where I want to go next.
If they can keep people arguing, then it's like on the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. We're doing
Yeah.
this over here. Um, they're getting away with murder, and
Well,
it's because nobody's watching. They're too busy focused on trivial news, and they're not looking at the big picture of what's going on in the world. The media giants, control it. There was a song in the 80s, that called "When the Walls Come Down." There was a line in the song. This was 40 years ago, and the line said, "I don't think there are any Russians, and there ain't no Yanks, just corporate criminals playing with tanks." And that stuck in my head. But there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
It's money and power, and who's controlling the narrative and who's getting paid for it.
What's
So
the wag the dog.
right,
Or-
dog, yeah,
Which, if you don't know about that, that is literally the perception of it. Can literally be. There's a movie about it, even.
yeah,
But it's like war can be almost faked. In all honesty, it's a matter of what
sure.
they want us to believe. And yeah, and they've learned to really play into that. If we're looking at very frequent things, and this has been happening more and more over the years. But I think, again, as the rise of social media, and now of course AI, because things can be spit out so fast, is when people do start to laser focus on something. And if the powers that be don't like that, they'll either create a situation to take your mind off of it, or
AI will be worse. They will
It's-
have algorithms that will gauge if media, whether it's social media, news media, whatever, advertising, if AI perceives that people don't like what they're being fed, it'll tweak it.
Yep.
So that you'll like what you're being fed, and it'll do it almost instantaneously,
and it's
faster than a human could do it,
and it's going to continue.
and it's going to continue and get worse.
Just like, I mean, everything we're watching now with kind of the Iran war. If you see all that, it's interesting how the chatter about it actually does switch almost daily versus certain
yeah.
things. It's a matter of, we're going to focus on this very strongly, but if it either tanks the market or people don't like that perception, it'll switch over to just another version of it. But we'll talk about it here, so you don't look at the left hand, you look at the right hand now. It's, oh, we're going to now talk about bombing this, or them doing this instead of us doing that. And, and then you add, again, like you said, you throw AI on top of that. So now you see videos and you don't even know what the fuck is real anymore, which is even more scary.
So you said the market. I'll take this as an example. So earlier I said the powers that be, the money of the world, right? So how do you make money? You buy low and sell high, right? Okay. So if the market is at record highs, are you really making a bunch of money? Not
No.
really.
Tank
But
it.
if you want to make a bunch of money, what do? You drive oil prices through the roof. You drive the stock market to the basement. You take all the money you're making from oil, you buy stock, and then everything levels out and everybody's all happy. And they say, "Oh, great, wonderful. We've got a ceasefire. The war's over. Aren't we all happy now?" Yeah, especially the people that bought all of the stock for next to nothing.
Yep.
And then the stuff goes back up. They just made how much money? It's ridiculous. It's so obvious to me what's going on, but yet so many people focus on the politics of it, or the fear of it, or you're going to end up in a war, or Trump should be impeached over it, or whatever your bin is. And they focus on all this instead of looking at the big picture, that it's a shell game. You're getting screwed either way. People don't notice it.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna draw back to where I wanted this podcast to go, and I'm actually loving where it's going anyway. So I really don't give two shits. But in all honesty, because you just hit on something that I like, though. So you talk about doing all that, and it's, God, I hope I'm not too drunk to make the point that I just thought about. But if you think about that, right? When you went back to in history, and if we're comparing this again to, God, I hate comparing to Nazi Germany, but it's just
Why?
because it's just, well,
It's a loaded. Good word. That's all it is. It's just
It
a
is.
loaded word.
It is. And because again, I said I don't want this to be like we talked
Polarized.
about earlier today, finger pointing politically of saying
Well,
that,
okay.
Trump is like Hitler and all that kind of shit. I don't want to
No.
go there. But what you just talked about in the way that it covers your eyes to think about the different things is that's what was done before, right? When they started rounding up the Jews, they made sure that people thought about the lack of food and how hard off they had it. So if we blame this will make you happier.
Well, okay,
It's an
so I don't
interesting.
I can answer your question without bashing any party because it's done under Trump, it was done under Biden, it was done
Oh, they've all
under
done it.
Obama, it's done under Bush, right? Okay, they
Yep.
all do it. What they did in Nazi Germany when Hitler came to power, you have to have a reason to fire up the people. And Hitler's original main complaint was the fictitious stab in the back. Germany was
Mhm.
screwed over. We should have won World War One. We were robbed. We were deep into France. We were deep into Belgium, which is true, but we should have won the war. And the fact that we were in the enemy territory is why we should have won. What he did not tell you was that Germany was completely out of money. They were
Right?
completely out of food. They were completely out of armaments
Yeah, they were hurting.
and they were hurting. And yeah, okay, they're into France and into Belgium. For how long though? I mean, the American army had showed up with endless supplies of everything,
Mhm.
and Germany was getting ready to get bombed back into the Stone Age. So the leadership at the time said, okay, enough's enough. Let's have an armistice in the war, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So what they do today, again, every side of the aisle, it's a distraction. Everything's a distraction. Were there any weapons of mass destruction when we went into
Iraq.
Iraq back in 91 all the way through 2001? No, nobody found any, right? Okay. Did Dick Cheney make a bloody fortune from Blackwater and Halliburton? Yeah, yeah, he kind of did.
Still is, even though he's dead.
Right. So then, I'll pick on the left a little bit. So Obama gets in, he gets elected with this whole immigration thing. I'm gonna deport all these people, but hey, while I'm at it, I'm gonna push through the whole Dreamer Act, and while I'm at it, I'm gonna push through Obamacare, and while like he had his little pet projects too.
Yep. Yep.
Every
100%.
party does, every politician does. It's nothing new. They've done it since the dawn of time. When they founded the United States of America, the guys who signed the paper, you don't think they set it up where it was pro business and
Oh, for
for
themselves? Oh,
themselves? Of course they
they
did.
didn't do it
Like,
just to be
of
free. They
course they
they
did.
want to be free and rich.
Right.
That's why they
We
didn't
want to
negate
make our
slavery.
own money and not give it to the king.
Nobody gets into politics to not make money.
No, and the Rolling Stones did it. They made Exile on Main Street. Why? Because they were paying 90% of their money to the British Crown. Like that, it's gone on 250 years
Yeah.
ago, and it's going on today. It's same story, different day.
I think the bigger question is the severity of the propaganda. So you're not wrong. Everybody does the whole squirrel maneuver over there. But as of recent, it just seems that there's a lot of internal turmoil that
Yeah,
that can be paralleled to what, again, the example of World War II when it was against the Acton Juden, and now it's, get Mario back down to Venezuela kind of thing. And it's a distraction. And I'm all for distraction, especially if it's a benefit for the country. But the thing is some of this is getting kind of scary with the distractions that are being held of internal turmoil. So the turmoil that we're talking about of all over the world, Kuwait, Iran, that's over there. Americans like it over there, but now it's starting to hit home, and it's not like this is kind of getting uncomfortable. And people are becoming more comfortable with spouting off how they feel about each other. I don't know if that kind of social discord is healthy.
no, it's not.
So, on that note, and thank you for bringing it back to the stateside, Mike. In a similar manner, again, we go to, since we're making the comparisons always to World War II, people becoming acceptant of rounding up Jews and putting them in internment camps. It is becoming oddly, scarily sometimes, and it's quelled a little bit, but I don't know how much. But it was weird to hear people almost cheering for alligator Alcatraz or even, grabbing immigrants that we deem not worthy to be in the US and putting them in, either shipping them back on a plane or putting them in some sort of, I don't want to call it internment camp, but a detention center of some sort, similar
Yeah,
to almost what we did with the Japanese in World War II. Because again, we're just looking at a certain color of a skin. And it was weird, or what I see now is it's like it became very big news and then it got very quiet. And I haven't heard that it's really stopped. You just hear about people getting picked up or, or whatever.
Well, I find it ironic that since you brought it up, that group, the main group who are anti-ICE, raising Cain about ICE. Okay. So from the people on the right's perspective, they say America, England, Germany, France, whatever country has a border, and you're not allowed to just go live there. You have to go through a process. You can't just come in and set up camp. Okay. So they will say people from South America, whether it be Mexico or Guatemala or wherever, they've come in and
Central
they've set up
America.
camp. And that's not fair. They should have to go through the process. That's the law, blah, blah,
Mm.
blah. Okay,
Yep.
great. But then you have the anti-ICE protesters that say, no, 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 no. They have the right to live wherever they want and they should be free. And you're persecuting these people and you're treating them like they were in Nazi Germany and treating them like, the Jews and this and this. But they're the same group that shows up at the same rallies that are screaming from the river to the sea, the Palestinian people are being persecuted
Yep.
and the Jews are Nazis, which ironic to call a Jew a Nazi. I'm like, what? So they raised all about that, and they completely dismiss October 7th attacks by Hamas,
Oh yeah.
and that so what? The Jews had it coming, it's full circle right back to that
Yeah.
anti-Semitic thing that they were doing 80 years ago. It's just the irony that you take one group of people and say, oh, they're being treated horribly. And then another group of people that are they've got one little tiny rock in the middle of nothing. No disrespect to Israel, but it's a little rock. And everybody's got to live somewhere. So the Jews are living there and you don't even want them to live there. It's just the irony of that never fails to escape me to see that.
I guess
It's
I guess
crazy.
the bigger question is how do we move away? How can society at large, not just America, but everybody move away from these segmented tribalism, anti-Semitic crap, whether they feel like they're more justified than the others, like down with Israel, down with Palestine, down with whatever, send the Mexicans back, I mean, whatever. How can we, as a society, with propaganda itself, is there an idea in there to where we can kind of fold this back into an ideal to have a conversation more than just picking a side and saying I'm right?
So I was thinking about this in a couple different ways lately, Mike. A lot of the problem with a lot with this goes along again. Israel and Palestine, they have hated each other for how many thousands of years?
Since the beginning.
Yeah, beginning of
Yeah.
time. So unfortunately, there is no, I hate to say it, but there's no diplomatic way you're going to ever
It's a
resolve that.
family feud.
It
It
is.
really is.
And when you compare that to what is going on in the US these days, what I see that bothers me is the conversation is always how do we get out who we deem we don't want here instead of how do we clean up what is or isn't here properly and how do we make sure that, like you said, people want to live somewhere and we don't want you just to come in and set up camp. Well, obviously the practice to do that is completely fucked because there's just it has become so overrun and it's not from what I hear in Europe it's the same thing is they're just leaving now they're starting to leave and over I guess
Oh,
UK
they're an
is getting
yeah,
everywhere
well,
but again you can't the problem I see is we're pointing a finger and just saying bad hate instead of we need to clean up and have a process for this going forward. That's always been one of the things with the government that I've never really understood um, as to why that there's no one ever wants to look for a solution. The problem is always let's use a sledgehammer instead of using a hammer for
I
the
think a
nail.
lot of it I think a lot of it has religious roots.
Oh, yeah.
What I mean by that is, so if you take any holy book, whether it's the Torah, the Christian Bible, the Quran, you could cherry pick information out of that of why you're right and everyone else is wrong. But I think in doing that, you're missing the overall message of God, that you're supposed to love your neighbor, love your enemies, because we're all children of God that we may disagree with. And I have read the Bible, obviously. I've read the Torah, which is the first five books of Moses, which is, we call it the Old Testament. I've read that. I've read parts of the Quran. And if you dig into it, the overall message is not hate. It's love, it's compassion.
How dare you, Steve?
How dare you? It's love your neighbor and reach out to people. I'll tell you one very short story. So I'm a Christian. I'm not Muslim, but I will tell you this. When I was working full time before I retired, I worked for the Duke Energy Company. I was a gas line safety guy. We had a leak at a mosque.
Mhm.
The gas line had been hit by people who were putting in a fence. It was a complete accident, no malicious activity. They just simply dug through the pipe. Okay. It was an accident.
Yeah.
So I had to go in and I had to relight the appliances in this mosque. When I went in the mosque, I had never been in a mosque. I took my boots off. I took my socks off. I rolled my pants up. I
Mhm.
noticed they had a little bathing area there to the left.
Mm-hmm.
I went around, I washed my feet, and I'm walking through this mosque in bare feet. And one of the clerics came and he looked at me, and I said, I apologize if I'm doing anything wrong. I mean, no disrespect. Work for the gas company and I need to turn your gas appliances back on. And I was simply trying to show respect. And he got the biggest smile on his face and bowed his head and he said, thank you so much for that.
Mhm.
I could went in there with my muddy boots and
Right?
screw these Islamic. I didn't do that. It's disrespectful. It's a house of God, whether it's your perception of God or not. God is God. It doesn't matter. Your perception, your view is irrelevant. There's God. I'm going to respect anyone who is trying to worship God and their understanding or their capacity. I'm going to try to show them respect. And even if they don't even believe in God, that doesn't mean that God doesn't believe in them. So I'll show respect to those people. They're people. And that's just my view of people. They're all people. So
I like
I
that.
think people just need to try to get away from that person's different or they're an enemy or hey, so they're wrong. So what? So you like chocolate ice cream and they like strawberry. Who cares? What
Think
difference
as
does it make?
long as it's not vanilla.
Yeah, well, whatever.
That's a
Well,
common theme all of our conversations, Mike, isn't it? It seems and more and more.
no,
Literally what
exactly.
Steve just said. It's so funny. This love and why do we care what you like and don't like? But
Right.
it's funny. I was thinking about this honestly earlier today, which is I don't know why, but we talk about we talk about this whole the immigration piece. I want to go back there for a quick second. And well, we don't want you here, and people come over because usually they're coming from you
A poor
don't
country.
yeah, you don't leave something that you love to go to
Right.
some place that you don't know if you're gonna like. You just assume you're gonna like it and all that. And the majority that come here are just looking for a better life. We like to spout that they're nothing but violent criminals. They're not. We know the percentages are very low, just like most people in our country, the percentages of us that are complete assholes and are violent is a low percentage, but it exists in every culture throughout the world. But if you think about it, the funny thing is, we get hung up on it and not wanting people to potentially come in if they haven't followed our rules. But think of how immigration used to work.
Go
If
to
you go,
Ellis Island.
well, no, 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 asylum,
3 Ls.
they'll show up and run, kill, and they weren't. It was, we're going to kill you all, and we're going to take it all. So it's kind of funny that the way it was occupy expansion versus now it's my god, I'm just trying to find a better life. And some people, there are people that seem to think a better life is outside of the United States, and personally if that's your view, I don't care, then go. go see if the grass is greener. And if it's not, then come back and hopefully you'll come back with a perspective where you appreciate what we have, right? That's kind of the,
I think my
but it's,
only thing, and I would really say only if I had to break it down, of if you come over here and you want to work, great. Don't come over here and get on the dole. I mean, come on, man. Like,
yeah.
like that's not fair to everybody else. It's just not.
And it's
So
funny. Sorry, I'm gonna cut you off, Steve. I don't mean I'm being rude for a second, but I actually was hoping somebody would bring this up tonight
yeah,
because I was thinking about it. And again, it goes down to I would I would love, Mike, to find somebody that works, like literally works in that industry, because I want to know how easy it actually is to do that.
yeah. I don't know. I
Because I
have no
think
idea.
we assume, like we have a guest lined up in the next couple of weeks who is he actually is he is an immigrant. He's here legally on a visa, started his own business, loves America more than where he came from, and we're going to talk about like how in depth the process actually is.
You want a Cuban on your show?
He's actually. I mean, if you know one, yes, I would
No,
love to. As long as they got to
no,
bring food. They got to
no.
bring
Listen,
food too.
I'm serious.
And
So one of
coffee.
my dear friends, Malcolm, I work with him. Cuban immigrant. He came over and he said the first person he walked up to was a policeman. He said, I want to live in America. I want this to be my country. What do I do? How do I do that? And he said, oh, well, you go down and talk to so and so, right? Well, a year ago, this past February, he became a U.S. citizen.
Oh, I'd love to hear that story.
So, and it's a fascinating story.
Yes.
Super, super great guy.
Please ask him if he would be
Yeah, I
willing
will do
to
that.
tell us about, because again, what the perception is, and this is where it's hard to have an open mind and have these kind of conversations, because there's things we don't know and we assume, right, based on what is being literally forced down our throats.
Yeah.
That, oh, you can just cross the border and all of a sudden you can get $5,000 a month in free shit from the government. Okay, if that's possible and it's that easy, can I sign my kids up? I would take some of that too.
Take it all day long.
So I want to know, because if it really is that easy, then we should all be aware of the process. If it's not, then we should all be aware of how, what it takes to do that. And vice versa. It's nice to, I want to talk with people who are going through the process, and even some who've decided not to become a citizen, but everything they have to do to be here 100%, across the board, paying their taxes and it being an upstanding part of our country while still keeping their own citizenship, right? And loving it, because some people don't want to become.
I would love to go. I would love to go and live in it. Seriously, it's
But what about years? I mean, there's a difference between months and years, right?
Right,
Before they want
I
you to
don't
be
know.
there. And it's but that's that's kind of the discourse that we were looking for, right?
Yeah.
Steve, is we assume everything is as simple. I assume for me to get free or food stamps is I just got to go down to the right office and apply for it. Well, there's got to be some process behind that, and I don't know what that is. I would love to know.
I think it depends on where you live, honestly. And I mean,
I'm sure it is, yeah.
some states it's easier than others.
Which begs the question is why? But again,
Why? Politics and
Yeah.
worldview and whatever. Not making a judgment one way or the other on that. It's just how it is.
yeah, I agree.
So that's a lot of it.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of things to get into, and like I said, I'm actually trying to line up a few people that can give us some of that perspective, because again, I want to be educated, so at least when I form an opinion, I'm forming one that's based on truth and not some
Right.
sort of bias.
Right. Not propaganda.
Exactly.
As
So
we said.
it all goes back again. It does a
All
lot of it
goes
goes back to propaganda, and that's
Yeah.
where a lot of the push is. And again, the propaganda now is always in our hand. It's different than it used to
Yeah.
be. It's always right there. And I do want to move on to one more quick one.
Okay.
And it's more a matter of, I don't want to say propaganda, but it is. I've really quieted you tonight, Mike. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm enjoying the shit out of myself right now.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, I
Thank
noticed
you.
I couldn't see your hand.
Yeah, well, thank God this is from the chest on up. But we talk about we talk about having a good time.
Yeah, we're
It's-
drinking and
it's,
talking.
we're having a, we always said that the basis of this conversation is if you're sitting at a bar talking random bullshit with a stranger because the
Right.
conversations always go down a really cool line. They always get really interesting. And sometimes I've always found for travel that that's when you could actually have those dialects, and people were usually inebriated just enough to where they actually didn't get angry down one side or the other. It just became a good conversation.
They held their faculties well.
Exactly. So we talked about the propaganda. We talked about how it pseudo tied into just how things were back in the day when things got rough over in Germany
Europe.
and all that, and in all of Europe. You're right. And I saw something the other day that took me one step further on that. And it bothered me because, and we talked about this a little bit before we actually started recording the podcast tonight. And it bothered me in a weird way because it was not as openly discussed, I don't think, or I missed it in the realm of the world, or a lot of people just thought it was, to quote Star Wars poorly, banter fodder or a bunch of bullshit that was going to come out and change. But there was a statement made by our president, and it didn't scare me because I knew it wouldn't come to fruition. But the fact that it could be made and nobody was, I guess appalled is the only word I could say. But when he made the comment that if Iran didn't do X, Y, and Z, he would have erased an entire civilization.
Do you know what ended the Cuban Missile Crisis?
I'm guessing Kennedy said he was just going to nuke Cuba and be done with it.
Well, so it's a true story.
Is it? But
So
and I'm too young. I'm aging myself, so I can't say I do know.
Kennedy said he wanted to speak to Khrushchev directly. All right. And they looked at him like he was crazy. And well, what do you mean? He's like, get him on the phone. Like, you can get him on the phone. So he gets Khrushchev on the phone and he said, look, what we're at a standstill here. We're at a Mexican standoff. What are we going to do? Right. And Khrushchev, being Khrushchev, made the bold statement, I was the general at Stalingrad and the Nazis had 9/10 of the city and I didn't back down. And we finally turned it around into ultimate victory. And don't think that if you push me, I won't use nuclear arms. And he thought that would scare John Kennedy. John Kennedy's response was, sir, I'm very aware of your war record. I thank you for your service, but may I also remind you that at that time, we were fighting on the same side against the same enemy. And the United States is the only country in human history who actually has used nuclear arms against an enemy. So don't think I won't use them either. He had Khrushchev's attention then. Khrushchev said, what do you want? He said, I want nuclear missiles out of my backyard. Khrushchev said, well, I do too. And he said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you have nuclear missiles in Turkey and they're in our backyard. So
valid.
Fair is fair.
Yeah.
To which Kennedy said, that's a fair point. I'll tell you what, gentleman's agreement. I will pull them out of Turkey. I will remove them all if you'll get them out of Cuba. And he said, because you're a man of honor, I'll take you at your word. Done. And the Cuban Missile Crisis was over. So I guess to your point about Trump and saying, I'm going to blow up this or that or the other, would he have done it? Would he have not have done it? I don't know. But when you have, for the last 50 years, clear back to 1979 with the Iranian hostage situation, said how bad they hate America, we're infidels, blah, 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 blah. Maybe if you had someone stand up and say, okay, fine, we're infidels, but we're the infidels with more and bigger guns than you. So do you want to sit down and talk, or do you really want to have this fight? Maybe you get their attention. And by the fact that we had a ceasefire last night, I think he got their attention.
Oh, yeah,
So-
that I will agree with that part. It was just, it was very weird that I guess the way it was worded is what I was like, wow, this is fucking crazy.
I don't know if
To-
he'd have done it or not.
Well, true.
But he's in a position where he can threaten to do it, and they know he can, right? Whether he actually will or not is not the point. It's guys, look, you're smack talking here, and you have been for the last 50 years. So we just blew your ass up for the last month. So do you want to talk
or take it to the next level.
or take it to the next level? Because we're tired of talking. And I think now they're gonna talk, work things out, and great, that's good. So we'll see. I don't know.
Well,
When
not anymore. The ceasefire is now officially over, and
Well, Israel fucked that up. That's the
Well, yeah,
problem.
that's
Yeah, I think they're gonna be able to backtalk that one because I don't want to go into
yeah, that's
us
on
and
them.
yeah,
Israel because they attacked Lebanon and that was bullshit. I'm not. Yeah, that was
I'm
not
already
cool.
tired.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully,
yeah.
I think the other problem is if Kennedy or if Trump was trying to pull a Kennedy, better
Right.
hope to shit that there's not someone in the other rich people in America that are gonna pull a Kennedy on Trump.
What they
Look,
say in
Because
what they say in the night was the '92 debate. You're no John Kennedy. I knew John Kennedy was a friend of mine. Remember that whole
yes,
but
but the super rich people that truly run all this are the ones that
right.
probably had Kennedy killed, and Trump's got to worry about them fuckers because
You never know.
we think the government runs it all, but there's someone
no.
behind the curtains always pulling it that we don't know who
The
those.
Wizard of Oz.
Yes, the lizard people, right?
Mhm.
Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to that man behind the
Yep, it's a guy
Follow
in
the
the
money.
Accord that scares you because he can buy everybody. That's always how it is. But it's interesting. Again, I saw that and I was like, the thing that blew my mind is that you could slap that out there just on a social media site and it was accepted. That's where it's like, wow, we've become. It's interesting that we are able to kind of throw stuff out there on
Yeah.
how social media has become the new. Again, yeah, I hate to use the word propaganda, but again, everyone is using it for propaganda in every form, from OnlyFans,
Because it has no social filter. You could be a
Yeah,
keyboard warrior and insult anyone, and there's a degree of anonymity.
Right. Well,
So
the biggest problem that a lot of people had, even on his own side of the aisle, that have with that, I'm going to annihilate the entire, people, is that's it's genocide, 100%. And the fact that he even threatened that, that's the concern. And I think that the worry there is that it wasn't really hyped up like, dude, what's this guy talking about? He's talking about wiping out an entire civilization, and he's the president of the United States, which is the most powerful country in the entire world for the universe, for all we know. And to say something like that holds a huge amount of responsibility. And the fact that he wields that so carelessly is what I think is the big concern. It's like, whoa, dude, is this the edge too far? Did you go too far with
well,
this?
so I guess my
you know
question,
what?
Mike, is what's the difference between saying it or doing it? Because during Vietnam, which was a 15-year war, they would drop napalm on villages to kill, a supposed enclave of Viet Cong. They didn't know they were Viet Cong. They'd
Yeah,
wipe out entire villages all the time. Thus the mantra when the soldiers would get home, who made none of these decisions, by
yeah.
the way, it was politicians. They would come home from war and be called baby killers. Same thing in Iraq. They would just go in and wipe out villages, bomb them,
I know.
missiles indiscriminately.
What worries me is forget where we are today. So take where we are today and what has been deemed as acceptable speech by the most powerful person in the free world.
Taylor Swift. What?
Look at where it's going to continue. It is a scary part though, right? If you want to look at both sides of this, look at Gavin Newsom. He has whatever social media team that puts out just as much crazy shit that's
Yeah.
anti-Trump. And
Yeah.
it's going to continue on down that path of, wasn't Marcon, the French guy, saying like they don't mind doing crazy stuff, or which was it, the Italian or him that was banging? I mean, they're all doing crazy shit out there, and it's just
Yeah.
becoming more and more acceptable. So what's going to be weird is what's the next level, or is the new reality that everybody in power just tweets on their favorite platform whatever the hell they want, whether they're going to follow through or not. It's not. You could say Trump, 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 but you know what? Well,
No,
Trump's
no,
got
no. It's
three,
not just about
and
that.
he's almost 80. The next person that's wanting to take his place, or the next five guys thinking about it, are already thinking about his playbook and how can he do the same damn thing. That is the line that the trajectory that worries me that we go down that path again. You see what I'm saying?
If you had it, so think about this. I'll just stick in America with American politics, still politics. If you had you saw that movie The Purge where, for a day or a week or whatever.
Hell
So
yeah.
if you pick a day and you said, okay, on Tuesday, we're going to have all of the LGBTQ community who cares to show up, and all of the homophobes on the other side show up,
Fight it out.
and you guys can do whatever you want. There will be no persecution of either side by law enforcement. If you beat each other, kill each other, whatever you do,
Homophobes are dead.
week to do that.
I don't know, but Dana White, it shit happened.
I mean,
Now that's a fight.
How many would show up the next week? Or
You're right.
or you had
every Tuesday you're saying versus or
I'm
once a
saying
year.
if you had all of the MAGA people on one side and all of the people, the Never Trumpers and the
Yeah.
No Kings people and all Antifa or whoever wants to come, and they all come out in a field, and the Proud Boys and Antifa, and they go out there and just beat the living hell out of each other on a certain day. If you said we're going to do it again next month,
Who would show up?
who would show up? Or
True that.
would they say, no, you know what? I don't really give a damn that much about the Antifa people. Or, you know what? The MAGA people, I don't really
What?
like them. I'm not going out and get my nose broke. Like, how many people would really care that much about it if the rubber hit the road and they had to actually do what they get on their phones
Dude, I love it.
and threaten to do?
I love it.
It's easy to hide behind your keyboard, but if they actually got out and fought it out, how many people would show up the next week to do the same thing? I'm guessing
Not many. The
many
numbers,
at
and
all.
every week the number would get less
would
and less and
plummet.
less. It reminds me of a conversation I just had with a neighbor I ran into the other day taking out the trash. We were talking about the similar stuff and how when we were kids, go back in the 80s and whatever, you'd get in a fist fight with somebody. There was a 75% chance you were friends within a week.
Absolutely.
Because you realize, what the hell were we fighting over? It was something stupid. And by the way, we actually agree on all this other stuff.
Do you know why the Roaring Twenties were the Roaring 20? Like, seriously, this was in Europe.
How old are you?
This was in no, this was
It's like, dude, bro, you're not that old. Yo,
not. I do have a picture of Keith Richards holding Adam and Eve as babies.
We all know that one, yeah.
No, the reason it was the Roaring Twenties is all of these guys on both sides had fought in World War One. They came home. They said, "We don't give a shit about any of this. We're gonna drink. We're gonna screw hot girls. We're gonna listen to music. We're we're gonna love life
And live
and
like
have fun, right? We don't care about any of this politics or money or anything." They couldn't have cared less, and that lasted for 13 years or 15 years, but it was a generation.
Yeah, if we get the roaring 2030s, that'd be phenomenal. We need
It's
we need
gonna
that.
it's gonna get worse before it'll get better.
It always
It'll get
does.
better.
Yeah, that's the stuff that we see. And again, as we're talking about, again, it's cyclical.
Cyclical.
It's Pharaohs did the same shit that we're seeing now, that the Germans did,
Right.
that the Russians did, that we're gonna do. And it really comes down to, please, people, try to notice it, try to learn from it, try to not repeat it.
It's like telling your kids something, Joe. You tell your kids, don't stick your hand on the stove, you're gonna get burned. They're gonna stick them on there anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. So
Yeah,
I
we
think
do a lot, Doug.
what I fear is a lot of times a lot of people forget about how to have a polite conversation. They just don't know how to have a conversation anymore. They just want to turn everything into a fight.
Fuck
Right.
you, Mike. I don't want to have a conversation.
Yeah, well, fuck you too.
But you're right, 100%. And it's more fun to have the
what's
conversation.
the matter? Don't I get fucked?
He is a
Well, I'm in
guy.
Ohio, Steve, but next time I'm in land.
I insist on dinner.
We skipped right to drinks. No, but
I'll
you're
bring
cheap
I'll bring
day.
the key.
But you're completely right, and that's the stuff that we have to hope that comes back around and we move into it. And like you said, Steve, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. We are gonna be due for another roaring time frame, and hopefully it's in our lifespan so we get to see it. because I want to see it.
Before I see it, because I said this years and years ago, and I'm not being funny here. It's on a 100-year cycle, right? If you look at everything that happened from 2016 on both sides of the aisle, what was going on in 1916? What happened in uh 20? Okay, in 1919, 1920, you had influenza. What do you have this time around?
COVID.
Right? Everything's on this 100-year cycle. So shit's gonna get really, really bad through right now. Look at our money. Look at the stock market. Record highs, record money. What was going on in 1926? Same shit, right? Okay. In 5 years, they've been predicting it, and the
Yeah.
bubble's gonna break. Everything's gonna go to hell. Everybody's gonna want to fight in the 30s, 10 years, and then it'll level off. It's not exactly a 100-year cycle, but it's pretty close. If you look at
Give or
it,
take.
there's a lot of similarities of what went on 100 years ago with propaganda. Now it's social media, with politics. Now it's modern politics.
Yep.
Finance, same thing.
Always finance.
Algorithms.
Yeah, every
Algorithm.
100-year, it's a 100-year cycle, and that's just kind of where we're at.
Yeah, if anything, it might speed up
It will
future
speed
because
up.
obviously that's just
Right,
that's the
right.
nature of technology. Speed it up.
Right, exactly.
I mean, yeah, we have a bubble every 20 years now. It seems.
Yeah,
And
we're getting
due
there
for
a
another
little
one.
faster than we
Yep.
did the last century, but it's same thing, only different, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that the one beauty we can all hold on to is I think we're fastly coming to the world of Wall-E, if you've seen the movie, where we're all just fat and sit watching TV and we're keyboard warriors and we never actually physically do anything, but we send robots out that argue and fight for us.
We don't pedal a bike anymore. We just let the electrical battery take us places.
This time we're out, Joe and Mike. Like, seriously, you know what's better?
I can afford good bourbon.
No, look, here's what's better this time around. Last time we were at war with Japan, okay? Now we're
We're
friendly.
drinking their whiskey.
So we're drinking their whiskey.
I love it.
And
Wait a minute. Do the Iranians make good whiskey?
I don't know what they make.
Shove in oil. But
No.
that's funny. But you are right. But it comes down to that's a great way to end this. Just like I said back in when we were kids, you would get in a fight with somebody, very good chance you became friends with them. We nuked the only time it's ever been done in the world, twice, Japan.
Right.
And now we're
drinking their whiskey.
we are close as shit as you can be with them.
Yeah.
We are like ancestral family. It's amazing how close we are with them. And we're drinking their whiskey because they learned well. And thank you. I appreciate them for doing that. But it is interesting to watch.
How it all comes back around.
It is very cyclical. And you'll see it if you probably were to get online and start looking at places in the world that have hated each other and then become extremely friendly and close to each other. It is probably way more prevalent than we've ever thought.
Who's our biggest allies? Everybody we've been to war with. England, Germany, France.
We left.
I mean, really,
We give them the biggest middle finger possible, and now they're literally our best friends.
I have 2 Toyotas in my driveway.
It will come around again, and we just need to make sure that we keep it that way. And we have to remember, that's the other thing, is remember someone who you think might be your enemy today could be your best friend in a few years.
That's right.
Grass is not always greener.
And Steve and Joe, I have a Araghi Saji. Is a traditional, often homemade Persian raisin-based spirit with formal Iranian-inspired whiskey is rarely produced within the Iran due to bans on alcohol. So ARAGH space SAAGI.
I'm not
There you
exactly sure
go.
what Mike just said.
Iranian whiskey.
I don't know. All I heard is the poor Iranians need to drink more.
Well, that's true.
Well, that's Muslims aren't big drinkers. But regardless, we all have our vices.
Yes.
I'm going to end this, everybody, because we've all hit a certain point of inebriation where we're just going to talk gibberish for the next 3 hours if we don't stop.
Steve, it was great to see you again. Thank you so much for your intel. Let us know if you're going to be doing any kind of lectures up here towards Ohio anytime soon this year.
Okay.
I'd love to come to one. That'd be great.
love to get back up there and do. I did a lot up there. I would love to do one back
Yeah.
up there.
He's from Cincinnati, or you
From
can
Cincinnati.
you can come on
I'll
down
make the
here
drive.
next
Oh
time he
yeah.
does it, Mike. And on that note, Mike, I'll be up your way tomorrow, and I'll see you within the next couple of days. Looking forward to it.
All right, brothers. Love you both. Have a good night.
All right,
Good
brother.
night.
Thank you, everybody.
See ya. Good night.
Cheers.
Drink a lot, hate less.